Hello, everybody. Welcome to um, the channel. I am a CCTE, but so short you can just call me Act. And well, today's video is a video about when Shanks possibly returned to the Holy Land. I can't pronounce it. I know I'm gonna butcher it, but this is about when did Shanks return. So, without further ado, let's go into it. So, as we know by the recent statements in chapter 1138, Shanks has returned to the Holy Land at some point. Now, everyone wonders when that is. Some speculated that it's during the time of the Reverie arc and that the person that we saw was actually Shanks and not Shamrock. Or others may suspect that it was after Roger's death because there was this sort of blank period where we don't know much about what Shanks was doing. But I have probably an answer for when Shanks actually did return. So let's get into it. So as stated, like I said, as stated by Shamrock, Shanks returned to the Holy Lands at some point. Now, the definitive proof, well, some of my points of proof that when Shanks did that is that Shanks, when he returned, more than likely received Griffin. But Griffin was not seen early pre-time skip. It was only seen later in the pre-time skip around the time of Jaya. So that means by the time of the Buggy flashback, by the time of Romance Dawn, Shanks did not have Griffin. Rather, Shanks actually didn't even wield a saber. He wielded a cutlass from his time on Roger's crew, because that's the type of sword that Shanks grew up wielding, was a cutlass, which apparently is a type of saber. But that's specifically the type of sword he's wielded. Was the specific type of sword he wields is actually a cutlass. Well, it was a cutlass at the time, and is shown and depicted by early manga chapters, video game art, and it's mostly video game art because that's where most of my clues came from. So that actually places Shanks' definitive return with and around the time of him departure from Dawn Island when Luffy's around 7 to his time as a Yonko. I believe his return would have happened in between those times. That's the only time Shanks could have returned, and why he still preferred to return back to the world of pirates was because he actually had a pirate crew, and not because he wasn't not because he was just a child who grew to love being a pirate. It's because he had a crew to look after. Now, I know some of you guys are going to say, well, how do you know that the sword Shakes is wielding isn't actually a saber? Like I said, I've already said, I think Oda draws a distinctness between both sabers and cutlass, with the saber having more of a katana like handle or handguard, with an actual, the handguard of the saber, while a cutlass has a more rounded handguard over anything else. It's like overall like a half circle or a half oval that encompasses the blade. So Shanks had to have returned to the Holy Land sometimes in between the time of, like I said, Luffy was 7 and 19, or around the time he was 7 to the age of 13, technically, because we know he became a Yonko. So that means that the sword that Shanks dueled Mihawk with was never Griffin. He didn't start dueling Mihawk with Griffin until much later. Well, actually, until he never actually got to do that probably, because Mihawk would never want to face, as he says, a one-armed has-been. So with Shanks' return to the Holy Land at a marginable area, damn, at a certain time frame for Shanks to return, I've now confirmed that I've probably, being a theory at all, confirmed that it's neither early pre-time skip, like, or it's neither post Roger return to Roger's death to Romance Dawn, is actually post Romance Dawn to pre time skip, to the start of pre time skip, essentially to the start of the actual One Piece story, which depicts Luffy's journey. And now there could be other time frames where everyone could you could specifically say that Yes, Shanks did know about it. You can say that, and that probably caused his return to be a lot earlier. But I honestly believe that it's actually earlier than his Yonko status because Griffin seems like a prized sword, something that a Yonko would wield. So I don't think him being a Yonko would allow him to go and retrieve a sword or get a sword from the Holy Land and be welcomed with the open arms. So it places him in between ages Luffy age 7 and age 13 since Luffy was born in 1505. Um, that places him around 1505, 1512 to 1518. The years 1512 and 1518 are the only prime years that Shanks could have returned. And it could have been after having lost an arm. Because we do see Shanks, like you could say, we do see that when Shanks returns from the second to last, his last voyage before coming back to Fuchsia Village, where he finds Luffy beaten or getting bullied by the or hurt by the mountain bandits. That time he's still wielding a cutlass. So post that, you have Shanks going on to essentially go retrieve his to go to the Holy Land where he's welcomed by the Figureland family and to them, and even given a sword. But at this point, I think Shanks had other reasons for going to the Figureland family. More than likely because now that Luffy had eaten a devil fruit, Shanks had um Shanks had to essentially play his cards right and begin making moves to prepare himself for the one big move, which would later be to get the one to find the One Piece, or essentially be the one that eggs Luffy on to becoming right for finding the One Piece and later defeating the world government. So Shanks could have returned at that point, more than likely to either learn secrets or to receive expedized training. It means that there could be a time where the Red Hair Pirates weren't all together and did sail separately while Shanks remained in the Holy Land, where he was probably trained by the Holy Knights despite being such a prominent swordsman. But he was probably taught secrets such as his, we all know he had observation killing, but it's probably where he refined such techniques such as his hockey and swordsmanship were probably in the Holy Lands under both Figureland Garling and probably his twin brother Shamrock, his older twin, which apparently is true as well. So with this, I've probably given you a certain time reason a time and probable motive. It's not really put together because it's my first video trying to do something like this, so it's not really going to be all that put together. But I've given you a certain time frame for when Shanks could have returned, which is the years 1512 to 1518, roughly between Luffy ages 7 to age 13. But more specifically, late Luffy age 7, post Shanks departing from um, Fuchsia, permanently departed. So this would mean after this devil fruit was stolen. Now you could also, I guess, make the standpoint of why would Shanks be allowed back into the Holy Lands, especially after his crew had essentially just raided a world government ship? Well, it's because Shanks is a figureland. They'd be reluctant to do anything amongst them. It was probably the reason why Shanks was brought to the Holy Land. Why he was brought to the Holy Land was because of this reason. He was more than likely sought out by the Holy Knights and Garling to bring him in for punishment for doing so. Where his only punishment, where his punishment would be forcing Shanks, who probably wasn't nowhere near as strong as Garling, nor as Shamrock at the time, despite Shanks' own infamy, wasn't as strong as the two combined Holy Knights, or his crew couldn't hang with him, and thus lost. And it caused Shanks to be taken back to the Holy Lands, where his punishment was essentially to begin training and to become a Holy Knight, despite his grievance, despite his essentially heinous acts against the world government by stealing that fruit, specifically that fruit. Shanks should have been put to death, but I don't. But more than likely, after finding out that somebody ate it, though they wouldn't be able to find out who specifically has eaten that devil fruit. And also, Shanks had lost an arm. I definitely see them seeing that as punishment enough, and Garling deciding that Shanks' punishment would be held out on the Holy Land, which is, well, his training, his refinement, and him possibly becoming a Holy Knight. But Shanks, more than likely, once he became strong enough, fought his way out of the Holy Land, or snuck out of the Holy Land with his sword that his father had forged for him, which more than likely has a Griffin Devil Fruit imbued in it, as shown with its name, because more than likely Shamrock's own sword's name is Cerberus rather than it having a different name. He's probably named his sword after his devil fruit. So that means that Garland more than likely named his sword after his own devil fruit as well. But yes, this is all the knowledge I have so far. I do hope you guys can piece this together a bit better, that I'm sort of used as a basis for this. Again, it's my first video doing something like this. So I hope to see you guys soon and returning back to the channel.